Hi guys, it's Eric. Welcome to the Film Photography channel. Today we're going to have a shootout. This is what we're doing today. Today I wanted to do a bit of a shootout between some of my favorite rangefinder fixed lens film cameras. Okay, so that's going to involve a few things. First of all, 5 rolls of Ektar, okay, because I've got 5 cameras that are going to be compared here. First camera in the comparison, the Yashica 35 GSN, Minolta Highmatic 7S2, Olympus 35 DC, the Canonet G3 QL17, and if you're keeping up, that's 4 cameras only. And what I'm gonna do is compare these fixed lens 35mm cameras with a Leica M6. And why am I doing that? Because these cameras at some point or another have all been called a baby Leica, a poor man's Leica, or something to that effect, right? So I'm gonna test that premise and kind of show you how these cameras rate next to an actual Leica. So I've done a review on each one of these cameras. I'm not gonna get in depth in terms of the features and all that. I'm just gonna kind of give you an overview. All these cameras have the same element / group configuration, and I've got mounted on my Leica a 35mm. This is an f2.8 Zeiss lens, and this is one of the sharpest lenses in the Leica world that you can actually put on your Leica. So I just wanted to kind of compare this to some of the lenses that are really good on these cameras, just to see how they hold up next to the Zeiss. Are these fixed lens cameras actually better than even one of the lenses that you can put on your Leica? So if these things come into the ballpark of a Leica, then you kind of can say, hey, you've got a really good camera. One reason that I chose these versus like some other compacts that you may, like something from the 80s or 90s, those plasticky ones, is for the glass. These cameras have like really big, glass, big coated lens elements that you just won't find in some of those cameras that have those tiny little chips, for a lens. This is a nice big bright lens. These are all 1.7 lenses. You can get nice bokeh because the lenses are the maximum aperture is so big. So that's a reason that I chose this, because these cameras really do yield nice quality photos. I think these are a good choice for somebody that wants to get into film photography, have a camera that takes really nice photos. So here they are. This is the shootout, okay? And what we're gonna do, we're gonna load all these up with the Ektar, 5 rolls of Ektar. This is how much I love you guys. We're gonna compare all these beautiful fixed lens cameras, right, to an actual Leica. So let's go ahead and get them loaded up with some film and we'll take them out. We've got the lineup. Let's see. Just take a couple of photos here real quick, and let's see what the shutter sounds like. Let's see what it's like to look through the viewfinder. Let's see the focusing, and let's just kind of see how it feels to take a photo with each one of these cameras. So I'm going to blow just a frame here for the channel. I'm going to waste a frame on each one of these cameras so you can hear how the shutter sounds, and maybe I can actually get a picture out of it. You hear that? You get the click, and then you get the stuck shutter release, and then it pops up. I don't know what that's about, but that's how the camera's designed. I thought something was wrong with it. One of my viewers told me that, yeah, that stuff, that gets on his nerves as well. All right, and last but not least, the Leica. Closest focusing distance on this Zeiss is actually even a little closer than the Yashica's. The Yashica's 0.7 meters. This one's 0.7. The Yashica's 0.8 meters. So this one's even a little closer focusing. And then listen to the Leica. There it is. It's pure mechanical perfection on that Leica. Tell you what, let's do this. Do a little flare test. We'll take some photos straight into the sun. Don't do this at home. But I don't actually look at the sun. I just kind of get it in the frame and in the corner of the frame, and we'll check the lens flare that way. Okay. All right. Now, as you can see, all these cameras seem to be pretty easy to, just pick up and shoot. No problems there. But it tells a lot how these cameras handle, first of all, meter for the sun, and then how they handle the sun flare, the ghosting and the flare and all that good stuff. Okay, so the viewfinder, starting with the Canon QL17 G3. The viewfinder on this guy is big. It's bright enough. It's got some information. You've got your f-stops on the right side of the viewfinder, and the viewfinder does move for parallax as you're focusing close. So there's that. Okay, so the Yashica has zero information except for these two arrows, like an under and overexposure arrow. Now the underexposure is not really underexposure. It's slow shutter speed warning, and the overexposure truly is overexposure. This camera, the top shutter speed is 1/500th, and it lets you know if you can't obtain a proper exposure with 1/500. That's what it's kind of letting you know. The Olympus is a fully automatic camera. It's not program mode. Olympus calls it fully automatic, and what it does is it tells you your combination of shutter speed and f-stop at the bottom of the viewfinder. The viewfinder has parallax correction lines. It doesn't move. So you know what to focus for parallax. It's a nice, clear, bright viewfinder. It's among the easiest to focus. The Minolta, as much as I like the Minolta in this lens, the viewfinder is not quite as nice, not nearly as nice as the Olympus, to be honest. If I were to rate these in order, I would say, viewfinder-wise, the Olympus gives you the f-stop and the shutter speed. Okay, so that's number one. The Canon Net is big and bright and easy to use, so that's number two. The Minolta Highmatic is pretty much in terms of size the same as the Olympus, but not as nice and clear. But it's not bad. It's not going to stop you from doing anything. It's just not as nice to look through as the Olympus. And then we've got the Yashica, which it has like, moving parallax lines, but they tend to move like sometimes. They only kind of move sometimes. When you turn the focusing ring, it doesn't actually move every time. Yeah, that's okay. That goes back to what I was saying about the Yashica. It's not quite as nicely engineered as the rest of these cameras are, but it's the Spider-Man camera, so it's got that going for it, right? All right, so anyway, but yeah, dead last here, and again, you got that crazy floating focusing patch. I guess that's part of the reason the parallax lines don't line up like they're supposed to. And just for for grins, I mean, looking through this thing is, oh my God, this is literally like twice the size of one of these viewfinders. I mean, literally, it is a huge viewfinder. It's like a good digital. If digital viewfinders were perfect, that's what it would look like this Leica looks right now. All right, we're gonna take some photos now.
I am clearly doing too much. I actually left my GoPro sitting there and walked away from it. Almost drove away.
So here's the results, right, as I see them, of the shootout. Okay, as you know, I've got the Olympus 35DC, the Yashica Electro 35 GSN,
the Leica M6, which I'm comparing all four of these to, the Minolta Hymatic 7S2, and the Canon Canonet QL17 G3. All right, and this is just how I rate them, okay? We'll leave the Leica out of it for the moment. Olympus 35 DC in last place. Doesn't quite seem fitting because it's a great camera with a phenomenal lens, sharp. I mean, it's just a perfect lens on this camera. But the Olympus doesn't have a bunch of, or doesn't have any real manual controls. It's kind of like what Olympus calls a fully automatic camera. I guess later they started calling them program cameras. But yeah, the shutter speed and the aperture selected for you. So that's a bit of a downside. You do have a backlight compensation button that'll give you a stop and a half. So that's some creative controls here. You can get this same lens on a different body like the SP, you know, if you want to have more control, but they cost a lot more. You're talking upwards of $200, but you'll have the same lens, and this camera is just a great lens. So in terms of value, I mean, this is a $40 or $50 camera with a phenomenal lens. It's just about as good as any one of these. And in the case of any of these cameras, get a neutral density filter, just so you'll be able to use these in the broad daylight, wide open at 1.7 without, you know, massively overexposing, and you can get some nice bokeh. Part of the reason that I like these cameras is because they are 1.7 lenses, and the bokeh is just absolutely beautiful from really each and every one of these. The Yashica is third place. It's got a great lens also. It's a little quirky camera. I don't like that the light meter is up here, and I've used this camera, you know, just kind of testing it out. I'll actually cover the light meter, and whether you're pointing it at a light, which shouldn't matter, or pointing it at a dark, you're going to get a different exposure reading. So I think there's maybe some light leaking going on, maybe through the viewfinder that's hitting the meter. That being said, the upside, you can dial in 1.7. And again, use that neutral density filter, but you're going to have to figure out how to change your ISO to compensate for the neutral density filter, because the metering cell is up here and not on the lens like the rest of these cameras. One good thing about this, it is a aperture priority camera, so you can get an exposure like a full minute, really, you know, if the situation merits it. Okay, in second place, my beloved, and I do really like this camera, I've had it for a long time, this Minolta Hymatic 7S2. If you just asked me before I actually went out and took photos, I would have said hands down this is going to be the winner, because the lens is so nice. I mean, it's a really sharp lens. It's a very punchy, contrasty lens. I mean, if you use like a saturated film, like a nice, you know, a colorful film like, say, Ektar, for example, you're going to get some gorgeous, you know, really nice saturated photos out of this camera. And that's one thing that I really do like about it. It's a shutter priority just like the rest of them are. It goes to 1/500 just like the rest of them do. It's got the metering cell right here, so you pop that neutral density filter on there, you're good to go. It's got a nice quiet leaf shutter, you know, out of all of them. It's probably the most like shutter, I would guess. Okay, but hands down, in terms of just doing everything right, it's got to be the Canonet. And I've had 3 of these things. You know, I damaged one. It's continued to work. It took a really nasty fall, so I know that they're really durable. The lens on this thing is just incredible. It's clearly, believe it or not, clearly sharper than the Minolta, and I never would have thought that, because this is, as far as I'm concerned, a near perfect lens. But you can see that the Canon resolves just a hair better. I mean, you really do have to sit there and compare them. It's not night and day, okay? And again, if this is the only film camera you've got, you're never gonna want for anything more, because this is a great camera. But the Canonet is just a hair better. It's, you know, it does everything right. It's got the quick loading system. That's what the QL name means. You got this quick loading system. You just kind of lay the film down on that orange mark there, close it, and you're done. The Minolta is just it's a fine camera. If you can find one in black paint, you're gonna be talking about upwards of $300. I didn't pay that much for this one, but I've had this camera for 8 years. These cameras cost about $100. So in terms of pricing, 40 or 50 bucks will get you this Olympus, and the Olympus is a fine camera, great photos. You'll be happy. The Minolta has that punchy, contrasty lens, a super saturated lens that you may like, and some people may not really care for that, that much. In terms of like maybe portraits or something like that, it might be a little much, but it's a great camera to use. It's dead simple. There's not a whole lot in terms of fiddling around with it. And the Canonet is number one because it gives you the most information. I mean, you've got a film advance indicator here to let you know the film's properly advancing. This lets you know the shutter's cocked, battery check, and it's and the quick loading system that I mentioned. So it's got a lot of upside for the Canon, especially compared to the rest of the field. So that's why your Canon Canonet, in my humble opinion, is your baby Leica. All right. So when compared to an actual Leica, you would be surprised just how close these cameras come to this $800, Zeiss ZM 35mm f2.8 Biogon C. If you're just getting into film photography and you want to have a good camera, but a camera with a real lens, with an f1.7 aperture that gives you a nice out of focus background, in a nice bokeh in your photos, and super sharp when stopped down. You get any of these cameras around 5.6. I mean, they're like tack sharp. Okay. Having said all that, yes, I can look at the photos and see that this Leica lens is a hair sharper. The one that's absolutely the closest is the Canon. Some of these photos I couldn't really pick one from the other, which camera was taken with. So I'll say that. That makes this even more of a great value. But again, unless you're sitting there comparing, in Lightroom or whatever, to each other, you're not going to look at any picture from any of these cameras and say, oh, I'm so disappointed. That won't happen. Each one of these cameras takes exceptional photos. So guys, this was it. This is a shootout. Thanks for tuning in. Click on the bell if you want to know when I upload a video. Please like, please subscribe, please share my videos on your social media, okay? And thanks again for tuning in.